This class we study about the master slave JK flip flop. Master slave JK flip flop, it consists of a series combination of master flip flop and slave flip flop. So that is a series combination means we are having the master flip flop here. Say I just draw the master flip flop here. JK flip flop, J and K flip flop, master flip flop. So this is the clock here. This is the clock here, and this is Q, and this is Q complement, and this Q and Q complement is connected to the one more flip flop called JK flip, one more JK flip flop. So I just draw the Q complement here, Q complement here. This is being connected to the one more flip flop, one more JK flip flop here. Series combination JK flip flop, and this we get as Q. This we get a Q1 and Q1 complement. This we get Q and Q complement. So what happens here is actually for JK flip flop we are taking the output from here. That is just show you now. Okay, just write once again. So actually we are taking the output from here. For JK flip flop we are taking the output from here. From here we are taking the output and we are giving the input to here, and from here we are taking the output and we are giving to here. But for this master slave, this is not a scenario. So we are taking the output from the slave. So this we call as the master, this we call as the master, and this we call this flip flop we call as slave. That is, the master will act first. That is, this is the clock pulse which we are giving here, and this is also the clock pulse. So the whatever the clock pulse which you give to the master, the inverted will be the clock pulse given to the slave. So inverted input will be given to the slave. So master is here and slave is here. So the slave is obeying the master. There whatever the output which the master will give, that is being obeyed by the slave. So you can see master slave. So and here what happens if I give the clock pulse as 1 here, so 1 complement is 0, the slave will be inactive and only the master is active in this case. And what are the values here? It is being stored in the master. And after, when the clock pulse becomes negative edge, that is 0, then the slave will be active, that is 1. This clock pulse will becomes 1. So slave will read the master's input. So see here what happens when you give the toggling condition, 1 condition, 1 condition also, the in order to avoid that toggling condition, what means we are taking the output from the slave, output from the Q complement we are taking from the slave and connecting it to the input of the master, and Q we are taking from here and connecting it to the input of the K flip flop. So what happens here, when 1 condition occurs, the Q and Q complement start to change instantaneously, but the output will not be entered to the input of the JK flop. What happens? The slave will be inactive. അതായത് clock pulse എന്തായിരിക്കും നമ്മുടെ, so here the clock pulse will be here the clock pulse will be 1, but the slave will be inactive, slave will be inactive. This will be active, this will be active, this will be inactive, inactive. When this slave is master is active and slave is inactive, slave will not give any output to the master, slave will not give any output to the master. So this, that's why this 1 when you give 1 as an input, this race around condition can be avoided. So that we see here, it consists of a series combination of master flip flop and slave flip flop. In addition to an inverter, the first flip flop is driven by the positive edge of the clock pulse and second flip flop is driven by the negative edge of the clock pulse. When the clock pulse has positive edge, master acts according to the inputs but slave does not respond. When the clock has negative edge, the slave responds such that it copies the master's output, but the master flip-flop does not respond to the feedback from the Q and Q complement. See, that is feedback from the Q and Q complement means this one. This feedback, if for 1 cases also it produces 0 1 1 0 0 1 0 1 like that, this JK flip-flop will not respond. Why? Because it is 0 here, the clock is 0 here. For if you give the clock is 0, then only the slave will operate, because it is being connected to a NOT gate. Then it is 1 here. So if it is 1 1 also, if it is toggling also, the master will not respond. This is master, this is slave, the master will not respond. So when the clock has negative edge, the slave responds such that it copies the master's output, but the master flip-flop does not respond to the feedback from the Q and Q complement. Thus, the master flip-flop does not have a raise around problem. So, master flip-flop is not having any raise around problem. If clock pulse is equal to 0, the slave flip-flop will be active and master flip-flop will be inactive. If clock pulse is equal to 1, the slave flip-flop will be inactive and master flip-flop will be active. See here. I hope you understood this one, the working of JK flip-flop. So, working of the JK flip-flop is master slave JK flip-flop. For clock is equal to 1, the say if I give J is equal to 1 and K is equal to 0, J is equal to 1 and K is equal to 0, the for clock is equal to 1, for clock is equal to 1, the master flip-flop will be active and slave will be inactive. Slave will be inactive. See here, for clock is equal to 1, master will be active and slave will be active. Since J is equal to 1, K is equal to 0, output of the master flip-flop will be Q1 is equal to 1 and Q1 dash complement is equal to 0. See, for if you are giving like this, if you give here 1 and if you give 0 here, so the clock is 1 here, 1 into 1 1, 1 complement is 0 here, so it's 0 into 1 0, 0 complement here is 1, so 0 complement here it becomes 1, so 1 into 1 1, 1 complement it is 0. So Q complement here, so Q1 will be 1 and Q1 complement will be 0. Q1 will be 1 and Q1 complement will be 0, but here you can see when clock is equal to 1, it is being converted to the NOT gate. So one inversion becomes 0, the slave is inactive. The slave is inactive. Slave is inactive. It is not active. So that slave does not respond. The slave not respond to input. So in this way we are getting Q is equal to 1 and Q1 complement is equal to 0 here as the output of the master. For clock is equal to 0, so suddenly if we made clock is equal to 0, slave flip-flop will be active and master will be inactive. Since the inputs of the slave flip-flop are not changed, outputs of the slave Q and Q complement has not changed. That means J is equal to K is equal to, for J is equal to 0 and K is equal to 1, so this we got as J is equal to Q1 is equal to 0 and Q complement, as the inputs of the slave flip-flop will be S is equal to 0 and S is equal to 0 and R is equal to 1. See, for this one S is equal to 0, so the input will be S is equal to 0 and R is equal to 1 here, but this input S is equal to 0, R is equal to 1 will be active only once if the clock pulse goes negative here 0, then when it is 0, this will be 1 here. So for clock is equal to 0, For clock is equal to 0, slave flip-flop will be active and master will be inactive. Since S is equal to 0, R is equal to 1, output of the slave flip-flop will be Q is equal to 0 and Q dash Q complement will be equal to 1. That means for J is equal to 0 and K is equal to 0, Q is equal to 0 and Q complement is equal to 1. So same answer you are getting here. For Q is equal to 0 and Q complement is equal to 1. So for J is equal to 0, K is equal to 1. So Q is equal to 0 and Q complement is equal to 1. Same answer. For next one, for J is equal to 1 and K is equal to 1, the same condition repeats here. We just see here. For J is equal to 1, for J is equal to 1 and K is equal to 0. For J is equal to 1, K is equal to 0, clock is equal to 1. 1 into 1, 1, 0. 1 into 0, 0, 0. 0 into 1, 1. 1 complement. Here it becomes 1. And 0, 1 complement. 1 into 1, 1. 1 complement. Here it becomes 0. So slave will be equal to 1 and S will be equal to 1 and reset will be equal to 0. So then when after that the clock pulse becomes 0, then this clock pulse will be 1. So 1 into 1, 1, 0, 0 here. Then 1 into 0, 0, 0 complement. This will be equal to 1. So 0 complement here once again it will be complemented. It becomes 1 and 1 into 1. So this 1 will be fed to here and 1 into 1, 1, 1 complement. Here it is 0. So see here this 1, 0 is same as the output 1, 0 here. So no change. So that for if you give 1, 0 as the input, you will be getting as 1, 0 as the output. So you can see 1, 0, that is Q1 is Q is equal to 1 and Q complement is equal to 0 here. Fine. So I hope you understood this one. Then we see about J is equal to K is equal to 1. When J is equal to K is equal to 1, for clock is equal to 1, the master will be active and slave becomes inactive. The outputs of the master flip-flop will start to toggle. So S and R also will be inverted. When clock is equal to 0, the master is inactive and slave is active. The output of the slave will start to toggle. This changed output are returned back to the master inputs. But since clock is equal to 0, master is inactive, so it does not respond to the changed outputs. This avoids the multiple toggling which leads to the race around condition. Thus, master slave flip-flop will avoid race around condition. That is, when K is equal to 1, when J is equal to 1, K is equal to 1, see this Q and Q1 start to toggle 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1 start to toggle. Q complement will start to toggle 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. So this condition will be there. But this will be fed to the S also. This will be fed to the R also. Similarly, this output will start toggling 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. And this output will also start toggling 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. But what happens? This feedback is being fed to the input of the master. This feedback is being fed to the input of the master. But what happens? As the clock is 0, this master will be inactive. The master will be inactive. So the master will not will not accept this feedback. Why master will not accepting this feedback means the master will be inactive. മാസ്റ്റർ ഇനാക്റ്റീവ് ആയതുകൊണ്ട് ഈ ടോഗൽ ചെയ്യുന്ന ഈ ഒരു കണ്ടീഷൻ്റെ ഔട്ട്പുട്ട് ഒന്നും മാസ്റ്ററിനെ ഈ ടോഗൽ ചെയ്യുന്ന കണ്ടീഷൻ്റെ ഔട്ട്പുട്ട് മാസ്റ്ററിൻ്റെ ആ ഇൻപുട്ടിനെ ബാധിക്കുന്നില്ല. So it is not affecting the master input. So that is why when thus since the clock is 0, the master is still inactive, so it does not respond to the changed outputs. ആ ചേഞ്ച്ഡ് ഔട്ട്പുട്ട്സിന് അത് റെസ്പോണ്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല. ദിസ് അവോയ്ഡ്സ് ദി മൾട്ടിപ്പിൾ ടോഗിളിങ്. ആ മൾട്ടിപ്പിൾ ടോഗിളിങ് അത് 1 or 2 ടോഗിളിങ് അല്ല കൂടുതൽ ടോഗിളിങ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ അത് അവോയ്ഡ് ചെയ്യും. വിച്ച് ലീഡ്സ് ടു ദി റേസ് അറൗണ്ട് കണ്ടീഷൻ. ആ ഒരു റേസ് അറൗണ്ട് കണ്ടീഷന് അത് അവോയ്ഡ് ചെയ്യും. അപ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് 1-0-0-1-0-1 ആയാലും തന്നെ അത് ഇനിയും കൂടുതൽ ചെയ്യാണ്ട് ഇനിയും അത് റേസ് അറൗണ്ട് കണ്ടീഷൻസിൽ ആ ഒരു കണ്ടീഷൻ അങ്ങ് സസ്റ്റെയിൻ ചെയ്യും. പക്ഷെ അത് സസ്റ്റെയിൻ ചെയ്യില്ല. അത് ഈ JK ഫ്ലിപ്പ് ഫ്ലോപ്പ് മാസ്റ്റർ ഫ്ലിപ്പ് ഫ്ലോപ്പ് അതിനെ റെസ്പോണ്ട് ചെയ്യില്ല. Master flip flop will not be responding to the output of the slave flip flop, as the master flip flop will be inactive. So thus master flip flop JK flip flop will avoid the race around condition. So next we see about the T flip flop in the next class. Next we study about T flip flop, not D. It we study about the T flip flop.